Alright, what's up everyone? I'm back at the desk, here to study another lowercase family of letters. And today I'm talking about what I'd call the M family, which includes the M, the N, and then related letters would be the Z, the H, the X, and the V. But we're just going to talk about the M today. We're not going to get into any other letters. I think if you follow along here, you'd be able to apply what I've done here with the M to any of the letters that have this overturn, this N shape, really. I'm doing the M just because the N is contained within the M, so we kind of cover both by doing the M. And it's also just kind of an easier letter to start with, even though it has an extra hump to it as compared to an N, which just has the one hump. Just gives you a little more time in the letter to really write through it. Yeah, it's just easier to write it smoothly. So what I've done here is I've drawn an M using my connective slant and my main slant. So my connective slant is going to be this line here. So it's this angle right here, which is 29 degrees. And you can see that controls the distance for all of my left curve turns, these overturns. Controls the length of those. How far am I moving to the right? And this would be my X height here, obviously, the baseline to the top of the M. And this is my main slant here, which is going to be 52 degrees. So I have a main slant of 52, a connective slant of 29. You could change these slightly if you want. These are just fairly standard values. A lot of books you see 52 and 30. I'm rolling with 29 today. But what I've done is I've drawn this letter out using these slants. So you can see I have, with the red dots are a little hard to see maybe on camera, but I've put dots along the connective slant, then the main slant, connective slant, main slant, connective slant, main slant, connective slant to exit. And this is kind of what I would call a skeleton of this letter. It's the straight lines, the geometry of the letter, using the slants that we've decided to write with. And I think it's really helpful because it's something you can really put it down on your paper like almost a perfect M, or at least you can put down a perfect skeleton of an M on your paper. You don't need to look at an exemplar. You can draw it out. You can draw it big, and then you can write around it if you want to really feel these motions. So I highly recommend doing that. And I mean, you just do it. Get your protractor out. Very cheap, great tool to have, and just draw your connective slants to the top of the X height, and then draw your 52 degree slant down, and just do that across till you have your skeleton, and then you can just sketch in the curves that go around it. Now, the curves are obviously a little tricky. There's no way to really draw them in perfectly. So you have to really sketch and approximate. Now what I've done here, you can see faintly, perhaps, is an oval. So I have a big oval right here. And this is an approximation. It's not perfect to scale. But this oval really shows you where this left curve up here is placed on the full oval. And the oval, obviously, if you practice movement writing, it's constantly mentioned over and over again in all the books, and it's suggested as a drill to make ovals in both directions. So here we can see we have this oval, and we can see that this left curve falls up here in this top left corner of the oval. And the oval is bisected by our main slant. So you can see that here. Our main slant's here. The oval goes around this way. Here's our left curve. I would call the left curved area of the oval. And the reason I do that is so you can kind of visualize the shape that this left curve should have. And you can see that it has a shape that's a little flatter over here, and then it gradually curves in as it approaches the main slant and then makes that turn down. So it's not a perfect symmetrical hump across the connective slant. There's a little more area between the left curve and the connective slant up here, and there's a little less area between those two lines down here. So very specific detail, but a very important detail if you really want to understand how these letters work. So highly suggest you just taking the time to do that if you really want to understand these letters. As far as movement goes with these letters, grab my pen off here. We know that down where we're starting is actually, there's a main slant line here as well, which I'll try to roughly draw in. So we have another main slant line here. So we're really starting like right as this curve gets to the main slant. So we're starting like at the main slant and we're going away from it. And to do that, we start with some upper arm movement, but it really turns into forearm movement as we get more and more closer to that connective slant. So we're moving from main slant to connective slant all the way to the top, and we're really using our forearm. Once we really get past the very beginning of this curve, it's a lot of forearm movement. See that action there? Not an up and down action like that. And then this curve is basically a transition from this forearm movement back down to an upper arm main slant movement. So now we're right on main slant, then we stop, reverse, do the same thing again, using a lot of forearm movement, make that tight curve at the top, transition back to the upper arm movement. I'm going to shift my paper over, do the same thing again, make that turn, and then the exit is the opposite of the turn we just made. So instead of going from forearm to upper arm, we're going from upper arm on this main slant to a forearm movement to exit. And then as we approach the ends of the exit, we're using upper arm up here, which also approaches this main slant again. Okay, so there's kind of a beautiful symmetry in the movement of this letter in terms of the way it starts and the way it finishes. You can see how there's the connective slant here on this finish, connective slant here on the beginning. So you have the left curve here, you end with a right curve. Very fundamental letter. There's a reason why it's a basic letter, why it's one that is mentioned early on in all these business penmanship books. It just has these fundamental strokes in it that are very close to the geometry of the script. All right, so let's move on and talk about drills you might want to do to practice this letter, to kind of get your muscles warmed up and to train your muscles to make these movements. Obviously, I just showed you this oval here that you can faintly see in this left curve on that oval. So, a great just warm-up / drill is to just work on your indirect ovals. And your indirect ovals go in the same direction as that right curve, okay? And you can do them standalone like this, or you can do running ones. If you've got your movement up to that point where you can control the running ones, great to do that too. And then obviously, that kind of warms up your arm and drills your arm to do this left curve movement because it's at the top part of this oval. And then the other part of this letter is the downstroke, which would be served to just do some push-pulls. And then you can combine the two, which I recommend doing it because then it kind of warms up that transition between the oval movement to the downstroke movement, which is the main part of this letter. You do it 1, 2, 3 times. So you could do some indirect ovals and then transition to a downstroke, and then you could even exit with a upstroke right curve at the end. So So that little movement there really captures all the movements that you would make in this letter. It has this right curve oval motion that you're making, transition to the downstroke, and then it also has that exit stroke that I did at the end. Very complete, but rather abstract drill that you would do to warm up for the M and to train your muscles for the M. Once you've warmed up and done some of the more basic drills, you can move into a more direct drill, which is actually approaching the M form itself, and do some retraces. So you can retrace this entry stroke, and then you can go down to a downstroke. Excuse my dog, she's barking at somebody outside. We're just going to keep on moving though. And you can retrace again, downstroke, retrace again. And you can retrace the whole letter, just like that. But then you might want to move on to just breaking up the retraces. So you're just retracing this. We're just retracing the entry and retracing the left curve again. Or you can just retrace the downstrokes. I mean, play around with it. At some point you'll want to start connecting letters, doing retraces or not. So you could do, maybe you're going to do something like that. Highly recommend that. Or maybe you just do a retrace on that one. And then do a clean one at the end. I always like the idea of doing the retraces 1 or 2 times and then finishing with a M just by itself. So you're kind of warming up, training your muscles, doing the retraces, and then you finish and do a clean M as if you were writing it in a word. So yeah, that's the main drills I'd recommend for this M letter, and obviously we covered the theory of it. You obviously want to practice it connecting to different letters. I mean, if you hit all the different vowels, you're going to cover pretty much all your bases as far as the M goes. So yeah, make sure you're doing like an M and an I, M and an E, M and an A, because that A is going to have that overturn connection. This move back instead of with the I, which is the underturn. So just different ways that you come out of that M can be challenging and something to practice. So I'm going to leave it at that for today's video. Introduced something, this concept's a little new in these videos. I've been thinking about just the last couple of weeks, and hasn't been in the first parts of this video. This is the third part of this series of this lowercase study, and you know, I'm learning as I go here as well, and I thought this is something that is useful to really visualize how these letters work geometrically. So decided to start introducing it here with this lesson. Wish I had done it earlier, but you know, like I said, I'm learning as I go. So hopefully I keep figuring out better and better ways to present this stuff. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Please subscribe if you haven't done that yet. Please hit the like button if you like the content. That is appreciated. Helps these videos get seen. You know, sharing with other people that are interested in penmanship and learning to write. Yeah, if you want to follow me on Instagram, you can do that at Perfect Biscuits, or you can go to my website, perfectbiscuits.com, and you'll see all my links and a way to email me and contact me if you want to talk with me about anything. So appreciate you watching. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.